and I'm here today to talk to you about coding and ADHD, where we excel. ADHD is defined as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in the DSM-5, which is the current diagnostic manual for mental health professionals in the United States. I and many others have said attention deficit is a horrible name for this disorder. Attention regulation would probably be a better name. I have plenty of attention. It's focusing that attention on what I should be focusing on that I struggle with. So attention regulation would probably cut down on those questions like, why do they have enough attention for video games but not chores? The DSM-5 defines 3 subtypes: inattentive, hyperactive/impulsive, and combined type. I have combined type, which means that I get symptoms from the other 2 types. And disorder is an important part of this name. Disorder, as defined in the DSM-5, is kind of like it's causing you and or the people around you so much distress that you need help for it. So yes, everyone loses their keys every once in a while, but if you lose your keys like every day or multiple times a day, that's a problem that you might need help for. I already had a psychology degree by the time I got diagnosed, so I approached processing my diagnosis through that lens. I had the DSM-5 as a framework, and I had participated in research on how stigma prevents people from seeking mental health help while I was earning that degree. So I live my life in a way that shines light on shame, including talking about and writing about my mental health struggles. So I started writing a 6-part series on ADHD and coding. I started in much the same way that I'm starting this talk. I talked about how it's an executive function disorder at its core. So we struggle with all the things that the big front part of your brain controls, called executive function, which includes things like willpower, how many things we can think about at once, emotional control, starting tasks, planning tasks, managing your time, how easily you can switch between tasks and organization. And all of this creates an interest-based motivation system. It's not importance-based. It doesn't matter if my house is going to burn down if I don't do the task. If it's not novel, the right amount of challenging, stimulating, fascinating, and or inherently interesting to me in some way, I'm going to struggle to do the task. The best metaphor I have for this is, will they press the button? If there's no reward or, God forbid, a bad consequence from pressing the button, I'm going to struggle to press the button. If there's no K reward for pressing the button, I'm still going to struggle to press the button. If I don't know what reward is associated with the button, I'm still going to struggle to press the button. But if there's a great reward, I'm going to press that button as many times as physically possible. So I broke the rest of the series down into 4 parts: can't start, can't keep going, can't stop, and can't remember. These are the areas that I feel that I struggle with any task, but especially a coding task. And I mapped each category to symptoms and tips and tricks, the biggest trick of all being that all the tricks are going to stop working, so you have to rotate through them. Can't start. I thought that had a lot to do with procrastination and time blindness and rejection-sensitive dysphoria. I struggle a lot with criticism. And can't keep going, I thought it had a lot to do with frustration and fidgeting and sustaining focus. And can't stop, I thought it had a lot to do with hyperfocus, time blindness, and rumination. And can't remember, I felt it had to do with distractibility and poor working memory and organization. And at that point, I was inundated in comments from people saying they felt less alone. They were finally going to get accommodations they needed because they had shown the series to their coworkers, and they had always thought that they were just bad at things, but this was them to a T, and they were finally going to get help. It has been years since I wrote the series, and I'm still getting messages, and if I've forgotten to respond to you, I'm so sorry. I appreciate every single one. And that's also the time that I realized that I was doing what everyone does to people with ADHD, and that was telling them that there's a productivity bar, and they weren't meeting it. It's estimated that children with ADHD receive 20,000 more negative messages by age 10. So I added a 6th part that I hadn't anticipated adding, called Where We Excel. You may be surprised to see distractibility is the first thing on there, because if you came to this talk knowing one thing about ADHD, it's probably that we're distractible. It's part of can't stop, can't keep going, and can't remember. But we're distractible because we're absorbing all of the information, while your brain may filter out information like how the sun is filtering through the room right now, and the sounds of all the electronics around me, and anything sensory stimuli around me. Our brains don't. But that means that we're absorbing information that other people don't, which means we make connections and recognize patterns that other people don't. And we're great at systems thinking, which means when the toaster breaks, we don't just think about the toaster, we also think about the power cord and the power outlet and is the power working, which makes us great at full stack. I know people who can't start tickets until they know the context of how the ticket fits into the system. And we're so creative. Part of this may be hyperactivity. If you can think more thoughts per second, you can probably come up with more ideas. We're constantly brainstorming. We reject the status quo. I've never met someone with ADHD who accepted we've always done it this way as a good reason to keep doing it that way. I once had a senior come to me and say, Abby, I survived without documentation. The rest of us survived without documentation. And I said, that's not a rule. That doesn't mean I have to. And he chuckled and had to admit that I was correct. We're the definition of thinking outside the box. I have a meme here that has two superheroes looking at planes, and those planes are labeled with frameworks for generating ideas, like brainstorming sessions. And one of the superheroes looks back at the other one and says, look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power. Some of this is hyperfocus, and hyperfocus is a double-edged sword. Hyperfocus is the struggle to pull our focus away from something that we're interested in. And that's driven a lot by curiosity. We don't stop to ask if it's hard or if we should be learning it right now. We're willing to work long hours on things that naturally interest us. And it leads to just one more thing. One of the reasons I got diagnosed is my husband came home and I would have been coding for 8 hours straight, no breaks. And he'd ask, when's the last time you took a break? And I'd say, I don't know, but I'm going to try just one more thing before I stop. All of this led to, in interviews, me being called the passionate programmer, when in reality, like Danny Donovan's comic here about the graveyard of abandoned hobbies, I'm passionate about anything that seizes my interest. And I will go all in on that until it loses its novelty and challenge, and then I'll move on to the next thing. And some of this is going down rabbit holes. We want to know how it works. Danny Donovan calls it the ADHD urge to whip out your phone and Google everything because unanswered questions make your brain itchy. And this is just, you ask a question and you get an answer, and that answer generates another question, and that question generates another answer, and that answer generates another question, and so on and so forth, until you've spent 30 minutes researching a small quirk about JavaScript, which has come in handy when I'm troubleshooting a bug. All these things together make us excellent at troubleshooting bugs. We know a little bit about a lot of things thanks to those rabbit holes. We think about the whole system. We're creative. We don't stop to ask if it's hard. We always want to try one more thing. And I have a story about a senior who we were troubleshooting. AWS stopped deploying our Next.js site as it does. And we had tried everything in the official documentation. We had tried everything in old documentation. We had tried everything. And I had found one thing in a thread that we had no idea why it would work. And I was like, let's try it. And I know she was at the end of her rope because she was willing to try it. And we tried it and it worked. And I think she's still mad that she doesn't know why it worked. But we're ready. We're ready with ideas and things to try. There's always just one more thing. And this slide's for my managers. We're easy to reset and reward. For reset, we're distractible. We can't remember. If you don't remind us, we're probably not going to get upset about it again. And sprints and tickets work great for the way that our brains work. Everything's already prioritized and broken down. And once the sprint or ticket is over, we get something new, which is inherently rewarding for us, that novelty. And the coding puzzles, if we like coding, that's inherently rewarding. And we're very susceptible to praise because of all of the negative messaging we've gotten. So yes, if your brain is not built for the way that the world is built, if the world is built for other types of brains, then you're going to run into daily struggles. But that doesn't mean that the way you think, it can't be a boon. So celebrate being a firework in a world that wants you to be a cube. Here's where you can get these slides as well as the full series and ways to contact me if you would like. Thanks.